All right, so looks like a bunch of people aren't here yet, but we're going to get started anyway, and we'll fill in the gaps on the way. So first thing, let me pass around information sheet, and you can fill this out at home and bring it back tomorrow, so you don't have to worry about it today. But basically, what I'm looking for here is just basically, how do you want to be addressed? What's your preferred name, preferred pronouns, but also give me your name as it appears in Canvas so that I know how to link you up with, your records on Canvas. And then ballpark self-assessment. How comfortable do you feel you are with Linux, or working in a Linux or a Unix type environment from 1 to 10? 1, not comfortable at all. 10, you live, sleep, and breathe in Unix. How comfortable are you with programming in general and with programming in C? Do you have a laptop? If so, what kind of laptop? What operating system? Is it Windows, Mac, etc.? And will you be bringing it to class? Do you have a desktop machine? Same question, what operating system or systems? And then just a sentence or two. What are you hoping to learn from this class? If you're just here because it's required, that's perfectly fine. This is really just to kind of give me some background on a little bit of who's in the class, and if half the people are here because they want to learn game development or something, I'll throw in something relevant to that perhaps. So just kind of giving me some background information. The next thing I'm going to pass around is a sign-in sheet. So if you were signed up for the course as of about a week ago, your name should be on here. It's got a front and a back. And if you find your name, it's alphabetized by last name. Please sign next to your name, and please fill in this little circle. This is really important, okay, because I'm going to use this to take daily attendance. So if you can fill in the little circle next to your name, that would be great. If your name is not on the list, go ahead and write your name in down here, and then please come and talk to me after class, okay, because I'll have to get an override sheet to you to let you into the class, because it's listed as full right now. So I'll pass that around, and that should be pretty straightforward. All right, so this is CSE 224 programming tools, and something else. I don't know what the exact title is anymore. Programming tools and development or something like that. If you're not here for that, you can stay or walk out. I won't be offended. All right, so my name is Nick. I've been teaching this course for several years at this point. The course continually evolves. It's never the same course twice. And hopefully it's getting better as it evolves. Let me run through a little bit of the Canvas stuff. So anybody not have access to Canvas? Okay. If you don't, or if you're having issues with it, talk to me after class again. We'll make fairly heavy use of Canvas as far as posting assignments and due dates and things like that. But let me give you a quick through. I'm not going to go through every detail here. Let's start with the syllabus. And I'm going to go straight from my files instead of Canvas, just because it shrinks everything down. And I'm not going to hit every detail on here. You should always go through the syllabus for any course you're taking on your own and make sure that you understand everything that's in there, because it's sort of the guidepost for the course, right? And it might say something like, and you have to wear purple on Thursdays or you get an F, right? And if you don't do that, it's in the syllabus, so you can't argue it. But I don't have anything like that I know of. So basic goal of the course, there's a few things. 224 is the first course in the sequence. 224, 22, 23, that's out of order, right? So we used to do 223 in fall, 223 in winter, and then 224 in spring, so they went in order. And 224 was supposed to be working in a Unix environment, working with debugging tools and make files and editors and things like that. And the idea was CSE 121, which everybody in here has either taken or convinced me that they're okay not having taken it. CSC 121 was programming in C, it was working in a Unix environment and so on. And that was supposed to be, you know, what gets you ready for CSC 222. What we found was that there was a big jump from 121 to 222, partially because people might take 121 and then 6 quarters later start taking the 200 level CS sequence. And that's a long gap to try to remember everything about C and Unix and so on. So we moved 224 into the beginning. So this is a few things. It's really a bridge between 121 and more advanced C programming and more advanced life in Unix. Okay, so you've taken 121, you've gotten a C or better in it. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're comfortable programming in C, especially if it was several quarters ago, or if you feel like you barely got through and you didn't really understand a lot of it in the end. Okay, so part of what we're doing here is we're going to come up to speed on C and make sure that by the time we get to 222 in winter, everybody's got a really good level of proficiency with programming in C and programming in general. So that's one goal. Second goal is working in a Unix realm. Okay, so we're going to do everything in Unix. Unix is probably where you'll spend most of your programming life down the road. If you're going WSU, that's Unix heavy. If you go out into the workforce, chances are you're going to be working in Unix. It's the most dominant system to be doing programming development in these days, and it's been that way for a while. So you want to get comfortable with working in this environment. You want to figure out how to do things like manipulate the file system, examine information that's stored on the system, move things around, stuff like that. You want that to be second nature, so that's not holding you back when you're trying to do your programming. So we spend a lot of time working with different commands and tools and way of putting tools together and so on in Unix. So that's another part of the course. We're going to try to spend a lot of time on debugging, right? You write your code to do something, and you run your code, and it doesn't do the something you wanted it to do. What are your options at that point? Option one, delete everything and start over, okay, which a lot of people do. Not your best option. Option two, take what you've got, figure out what's wrong with it, right? Especially if you spend a long time making this thing, don't throw it away and start from scratch. Start with what you have and figure out what's wrong. Okay, that's what debugging is all about. So we'll spend a lot of time talking about debugging and ways to figure out what happened. So those are the basic goals of the course. So my name's Nick Macias. That's my email address. My office is 115. It's the other side of the Collaboratorium. Collaboratorium is a big open lab space in the middle of the building. If you go through the doors to the other side, first office is Izad's, the next office is mine. Okay, so my hours are posted on my door. You can also get to them from this website that lists the hours for all of us, Carol, Tina, Izad, and myself. But basically my hours are Tuesdays, Thursdays, 7 to 9:30 in the morning. Okay, should not conflict with any classes, at least the 7 o'clock time. And so I'll be there 2 days a week, 5 hours total. And you may catch me at other times as well. The main text for the course is Linux command line. It's online. It's a free PDF download. It's an open access resource. It's not magic. I'm not going to assign homework from that text. Okay, you definitely don't need to print it out. You definitely don't need to read it cover to cover. It's a reference. Okay, it includes pretty much everything that we're going to talk about, but a whole lot more. It's 1,000-some pages, I think. If you still have the C primer from 121, that can be useful as a reference. So that's another option. I'll let you read the tentative schedule, but it's very tentative. It doesn't really mean a whole lot, but it's a list of some of the things that we'll go through, but we'll probably be off that schedule by the end of today anyway. Course outcomes, I'll let you look at these. This is sort of the formal statement of what I've said in the beginning about what we're trying to do in this course. These are the very specific goals for what you should learn in this course and what requirements they satisfy. Grading, this is the topic everybody wants to know about. Okay, so grading. You're going to have 5 longer-term programming assignments, roughly 2 weeks each. Those are worth a total of 15% of your grade. One-day programs, which you're going to talk about in a few minutes, these are very short programming assignments that you basically get 24 hours to do. They post at 8 o'clock in the morning. They're due at 8 o'clock the following morning. Okay, and those combined with a few homework assignments are worth 10% of your grade. Attendance is 10%, and I'll take attendance every day, sign-in sheet, and that's a total of 10% of your grade. midterm is a quarter of your grade, final is a quarter of your grade, and then the service learning project, which we're also going to talk about later today or tomorrow, is 15%. Okay, so lots of different parts and pieces. Yeah?
So no more like labs?
No labs for 224. I'll probably do them in 222. And yeah, if you got questions anywhere along this or anywhere in the course, just go ahead and ask. Keep it pretty informal. Course policies, I'll say more about this in a minute because I have another document which is more topics like this related to this particular section, but you can read this. It's pretty straightforward, right? Academic honesty and plagiarism. We'll talk about that more, but basically make sure you're doing your own work, turning in your own work. I don't take late work unless I explicitly say so. For example, the SLP, I'll take your proposal late. It'll be 10 points a day if it's late, but I got to have your service learning project proposal, right? Because you're going to be using that for the next 40 weeks. So I can't just say, well, you didn't get it on time, don't worry about it. But in general, I'm not going to take late works. If it's not in by the due date, it's going to be a 0. Same with exams and such. Try not to miss your exams, okay? If you have something that's going to come up, let me know as early as possible, okay? And we can always work around it. If you come to me after the exam and say, yeah, I had to work, sorry, that's going to be harder to figure out what to do. All right, this is probably the only day you'll see PowerPoint slides from me in this course, okay? And when I do PowerPoint slides, I almost never read from them, but I'm actually going to read these 2 sections from you. Well, I'll paraphrase the first one, I'll read the second one, because I want to make sure everybody's clear on this, okay? So support services, Clark has a huge mechanism in place for supporting students, okay? It's really the goal of everything that happens at Clark is supporting students, okay? We want you to succeed, we want you to be able to succeed. So there's a disability support service over in Geyser Hall. If you feel like you are in a situation where you would benefit from some sort of accommodation in this or any other course that you're taking. For example, if you have difficulty seeing from the back of the room, but because you have to come from across campus, you get here too late to sit in the front, right? We can deal with that, right? We can reserve a seat in the front and make sure that you have a place where you can see the board. If you aren't good at taking notes and listening and you want to be able to, thank you, have a note taker, right, who takes notes for you, we can set that up, right? The Disability Support Services Office can provide another student with carbonless copy paper. They take their notes, they just give you a copy.
Are you still doing recording sessions?
So yes, I'm also recording the lectures, okay? And I'll be posting those on YouTube, and there's a link to it on Canvas. Unless it messes up. Once in a while something messes up and I lose the audio or I forget to start it or something like that. But in general, yeah, the lectures will be posted online, which can help you if you want to go back and review something and so on. So if you feel like you're in a situation where you could benefit from some sort of accommodation, you have a few options, right? Come and talk to me, talk to the VSS office, send them an email, visit their website, give them a call, something, okay? And like I say, this is for every class, not just this one, not just the classes I teach. This is a campus-wide policy. And there's all kinds of options available. And if you're not sure, go and have a conversation, right? Doesn't hurt to talk to somebody and find out what the options are. And the goal is, you know, we want you to be able to concentrate in this course on learning Linux and C programming and debugging and things like that, not dealing with the fact that, you know, I'm always sitting next to the window and I can't see because there's a glare and, you know, or something like that. So take advantage of that accordingly. Okay, so the non-discrimination policy, this is the one that I want to read verbatim, okay, because I want to make sure everybody has read this or heard this at least once in their classes here at Clark. And again, this is campus-wide. So Clark's non-discrimination policy. Clark College affirms a commitment to freedom from discrimination for all members of the college community. The college expressly prohibits discrimination against any person on the basis of race, color, national origin, disabled veteran status, sex, sexual orientation, age, gender identity, creed, gender expression, Vietnam-era veteran status, religion, marital status, and presence of physical, sensory, or mental disability. The responsibility for and the protection of this commitment extends to students, faculty, administration, staff, contractors, and those who develop or participate in college programs. It encompasses every aspect of employment and every student and community activity. Self-explanatory, pretty straightforward. Okay, so if you ever find that there's an issue along the lines of this, again, talk to me, talk to another teacher. If you're having something in another class and you're not comfortable bringing it up in there, talk to a teacher in another class, talk to me, right? Have a conversation. All right, link to a code of student conduct, a link to Canvas, some keys to success. I'm going to expand on these in a moment, so I'm not going to read these from here. If we get bad weather and we cancel, go to Clark's website. There's a list of cancellations available. And when I put a notice on there to cancel this class, everybody should get an email automatically. And then department course policies, you can find the PDF up there. Any questions on the basic syllabus? Yeah.
For attendance, I have to come from a class campus, and so sometimes parking can be tricky in the class.
Yeah. So if you're not here when the attendance sheet goes around, make sure you sign in by the end of the class. Okay, just come up at the end of class, and I'll leave this here, right, and just come up and put your name on it. I'm not worried if you get to class 15 minutes late. I just want to make sure that you're here. And yeah, parking can be tricky. Getting across campus can be tricky. So thanks for reminding me. All right, you've got student info sheets. Like I say, turn those in tomorrow. So there's also these additional course notes, and this sort of takes priority over what's in the syllabus if there's a conflict, because this I wrote specifically for this section. So let's run through these. Let's start with keys to success. And these are based on my experience teaching this course, my experience in my own learning. And they may not be the keys for your success, but chances are these are good things to strive for. Do all of the one-day programs. Okay, we're going to talk about those still later today, and I'll show you how to do your first one. But like I say, these are intended to be short check-ins. If you understand all the material up to this point today, whatever day we're on, the ODP that you have to do for tomorrow should be a slam dunk. It should take you like 5 minutes. Okay, they're very, very short snippets of code. If you understand the concepts, they're very straightforward to do. But if you don't, if you think you know how to use scanf, but you really don't, you might spend an hour or two trying to get this ODP to work. Okay, that's what you want to have happen now, not when you're on the exam trying to write code and you realize, I don't know how to use this function. I don't understand this concept. You want to figure those out along the way. Okay, so it's really important that you do all of these one-day programs and you try to get 100% on them. If you get a 90%, you're missing something critical. Okay, so it's really a check-in. It's a chance to say, do I understand what I'm supposed to have learned today, right? And if something's not working on, a daily program, a longer programming assignment, and so on, again, don't go back and start from the beginning. Work through the problem. Okay, now this is going to sound really weird to you, but if you're working on a program, you've written some code to do something, you run it and it doesn't work, that is the most valuable thing in the world to you. Okay, that program represents a piece of knowledge that you are missing, and if you can work through that bug and figure out why that program's not working and fix it so it works, you have just gotten the greatest learning experience possible. Okay, way better than I can ever do by standing up here and talking to you. Because I can present information, I can present some gotchas, but the very particular thing that you might be confused about is sitting inside that problem in front of you. And if you can work through that and find the solution, figure out why that program did not work the way you thought it was supposed to, you've learned something really valuable. And the harder it is to do that, the more valuable the outcome will be. Okay, my longest bug ever was 2 weeks. I spent about 5 hours a day for 2 weeks solid tracking down this bug. And when I finally figured it out, not only was I totally blissed out, but I learned something really key that I never forgot, right? So that problem that isn't working, that's your gem, that's your precious, right? That's not something you want to just delete and start over again, try something different. Oh, it worked, good, I got 100%, I can go on to something else now, right? You've just lost a huge learning opportunity. So the struggle is really key, which means you want to start earlier enough so that when you run into these struggle points, you have time to work through them. And sometimes you can't just hit your head against it. Sometimes you got to take a break, you got to do something else, take a walk, go work out, something, and come back to it. Maybe you need to sleep on it, right? So a programming assignment that you start the day before it's due doesn't let you have enough time to do this learning, right? And the goal is the learning. Getting the program assignment done gets you a good grade. Yeah, you get your grade, you move on to the next course. That's important. The real goal is to learn how to program, to get very comfortable with that process, okay? To start early enough that you have time to go through the struggles. Stick to working in Linux. All right. Avoid IDEs like code blocks and Eclipse and Visual Studio and things like that. Work from the command line. Okay, and we'll talk about what that means. I'll show you how to get onto the server and do things from there. The more you work on the command line, the better you're going to be when it comes time to do the exams. If you use an IDE that fills in the outline for your code for you and highlights syntax and tells you, how you should type something instead of how you typed it and so on, again, you're not going to learn it as well. If you're working from the command line, if you're using VI, if you're using GCC, you're going to learn all these things just along the way. You're going to learn how to manipulate files, move around the file system, and so on. You're not going to have to study it for the exams. Yeah?
Like a side note, do you by any chance have one of those sheets that show all the commands for VI, like the keyboard shortcuts?
I don't have a VI cheat sheet up, I don't think, but they're pretty easy to find. And I can try to dig one up and post it. Yeah, I'll post one up later today. All right, stay on track and ask questions. Again, explore and understand things that don't work. Right, that's more important than understanding things that do work. And ask questions. All right, getting help. So I'm here to help you. Okay, that's my job for coming into this place every day. I'm here to help you, to answer questions, to guide you. Okay, I won't tell you how to write your program, but I'll look at what you're doing and I'll try to figure out what you need to do differently, and I'll try to point you in that direction. Okay, but ultimately you teach yourselves. Right, it's something in our brains that cause it to be rewired in a way that lets us learn. But I will try to guide you along the way. So I'm here to help you, but I'm going to ask you to be very limited in using email to talk to me for help. Okay. By the end of spring quarter last year, I was getting between 50 and 100 emails a day from students. And it's not that I don't like talking to students, but a lot of the emails were things where the information was available on Canvas and the syllabus and the notes, and a lot of the questions were things that I had to repeat over and over, like, when is our final exam? Right? Or, what do you mean by such and such in this assignment? Or is it okay if I do this thing instead of that thing? So we've got a Discord server running for this class, and you can join there. And there's a channel for 224, there's a channel for 215, there's a general channel. And I would like you to get in the habit of using the Discord server when you have questions that aren't specifically related to just you. For example, you've got a situation coming up, you're going to be out of town next Wednesday, and I was going to do something there, and how can you make up the time? Okay, that's a good email question, right? That's not something that everybody in the class needs to hear about and chime in on. But a question like, in this assignment, what are we supposed to do if the user enters a blank line? What do you mean by check for user error? Stuff like that. Post those on Discord, okay? And if you're on Discord and somebody posts a question, you know the answer, go ahead and post the answer. This is a great way to learn, is by answering questions for other people. On the other hand, though, don't say, I don't know how to write this program, can somebody show me the code? Okay, don't do that. So I don't want people sharing code. Okay, obviously, if there was a take-home test, which I'm not planning, I wouldn't want you comparing answers to the take-home exam. Okay, so common sense, and if I see things on there that I think shouldn't be on there, I'll make announcements about that accordingly. But things like, well, why don't you try such and such, or why don't you go back and review the such and such function, right? That's all good stuff. So I'd say in general, don't post code, but questions, clarification on assignments. I'm really confused. I don't know how to use the debugger. How do you start GDB? Things like that, right? Discord. Okay. So this is new for this offering of 224. I haven't done this before. I've just used email and discussions on Canvas, and so we're going to try using this. Does that make sense? All right. So hop on Discord. Linux we talked about. Okay, Git. How many people here are familiar with Git? Cool. All right, you're going to be really familiar with Git by the end of this course. And Git is one of these things that you're going to encounter again and again. Again, if you're WSU, it's all about Git up there, right? Most jobs, they want you to use Git. So what is Git? Git is basically, it's a source code control system. It's a way to, as you're developing code, be able to save copies of your code at intermediate points. And you can go back to a previous version, right? And it's all saved for you, and it's fairly painless to use once you get it set up. It's also a way to collaborate, so you can have multiple people working on a project. This was the original goal of Git, was to let multiple people work on a set of code and share their updates and changes and things like that. It's also a way to store things offline. So there's things like Git Lab and GitHub, which are cloud servers, where you can take all of your code that you're developing and you're making backups of different versions of it, you can push it off into the cloud. And if something happens, like our server goes south and we lose all of our code, right, you've got a copy on this Git server. Or if you're working on the Linux server and you want to start working on your own machine, you can just clone what you've got on the Git server and pull it down to your other machine. You make some changes there, you want to push them over to your Linux server, you go to Linux server and you just pull them down from the Git server. So we're going to talk about Git, and Git's going to be how you turn in your assignments in this course. So everybody's going to need a Git Lab account, and we're going to talk about how to set that up probably tomorrow or Wednesday. And your first homework, which is due Friday, is to basically just make a Git Lab account, tell me what your username is, create one repository with a README, and then give me access to it. All right, attendance we already said is mandatory, counts 10% of your final grade. If you come in late, just sign the sheet at the end of the class. And if you came in late today and you didn't notice it, okay, so there's a sign-in sheet. So sign your name. If you're not on here, write your name on the bottom and then fill in the little circle to the left of your name. And just come up after class and do that. One-day programs we're going to talk about very shortly. But make sure Canvas is set up to notify you when things change in the course. Okay, you can set it up for like weekly, daily, or immediate. Set it up for immediate. Okay, because when I create a new one-day program, it'll open up on Canvas. You want to find out about that right away. You don't want to wait till the end of the day to get that after midnight or something, because it's probably due at 8 o'clock the next morning. So the goal is these ODPs will open at 8 a.m. If you get a chance, read through it before a class, but in the beginning of class, we'll go over the ODP that just opened. You think about it, you ask questions, and then you go off and you work on it, and it's due the next morning at 8. Okay. A lot of people, as soon as it opens at 8, they turn it in, they're done by 8:05, and they don't have to worry about it.
Is that like a weekly thing, daily thing?
Daily.
Daily.
Pretty much daily. In the beginning, it's going to be daily. But the first ODP is not due till Wednesday, because I want to give people 2 days to be able to get logged into the server and so on and so forth. And then it'll be mostly daily, and then it'll taper off, and it'll kind of depend what we're doing in class. All right, so that's the Discord server, the other additional course notes. Let's see. Let's start on the how-to guide. I'm not going to do it here. All right, so the main thing I want to go through here is getting into the Linux server. Okay, this is not the same Linux server from 121. Okay, so the server that we're using here, I didn't list the server here, really. Oh no, it's up there. I should have bold-faced it. Okay, so it's linux.engrcs.com. Okay, instead of ctech.clark.edu. Your username is your first initial followed by your last name, all lowercase, no period in between, no number at the end. Okay, so it's a different login from CTEC. So my name is Nick Macias. My username would be NMACIAS. Is that clear? Okay, and your password, your initial password is your student ID followed by an underscore. So it's 10 characters, 9 digits, and then an underscore. And the first time you log in, it'll force you to change your password. Okay, so how do you get to the server? If you're on Windows, you can use PuTTY. Okay, the same thing you use in 121. So run PuTTY, and instead of ctech Clark EDU, put in linuxengrcs.com. If you're on a Linux machine, you can use SSH or whatever else you like to use. If you're on OS X, you can open the terminal window and use SSH. If you're on your phone, you can use Termux or Server Auditor, or there's a billion clients available that'll let you get in, but doing C development on a phone is usually painful, especially if you're trying to use VI.
Are we still going to have access to our CTEC login?
I think you still have access. I don't have anything to do with CTEC, but I believe you still do, because I still do at least.
Okay.
So you can try. All right, so let me just go ahead and log in. So I'm sitting on a Linux machine, so I'll show you how to do this from Linux. If you use PuTTY, you've already used PuTTY before. So this should be first initial followed by last name, but I wanted to use a totally new account so that it doesn't have all the stuff I've set up. So I'm Goblin King at linuxengrcs.com. Okay, so you log in and ask for the password. I'll put in my password. It says welcome, blah, blah, blah. And then it says your password has expired. You must now change your password and log in again. Okay, so first thing you have to put in is your current password. That's your 9-digit student ID followed by an underscore. Okay, so log in with your password. It'll ask you to change your password. Put in your current password again, not your new one. Okay, so I put in my current password, and then it'll ask for a new password. So type that in, and then put in the new password a second time to confirm, and you should be set, and it logs you out. So now if I log in again, I should be able to put in my new password that I just set up, and I'm logged in. Okay, if that does not work, if you signed up for the course after, say, 2 weeks ago, you may not have an account. So this is an email case, okay? If you're not able to get logged in, send me an email and make the subject something like, can't get logged in. And I'll either confirm that you have an account and remind you what the user ID and password should be, or I'll set up an account for you, and I'll let you know one way or another. So you want to do this like today, as soon as possible, okay? And tonight I'll go through those emails and we'll figure out everybody's account status. So that should get everybody logged in. All right, questions about that? And my email is in the beginning of the syllabus. It's just nmacias, first initial last name, at clark.edu. All right, let's talk about ODPs. So come down here, here's ODP 401, and it's due on the 25th, that's Wednesday, 8 a.m., so click through on that. And it says ODP 401 is your first one-day program, which you have 2 days to complete. Due 8 o'clock Wednesday morning. Write a C program, which prints a single line that says hello world, uppercase H and W, followed by a new line at the end. All right, so let's do this. So I'm going to call this ODP 401.c. All right, so there's my attempt at ODP 401, which I have not read the instructions very carefully, because I'm saying hi world. So I'm going to compile this. And I'm compiling it with this -O switch, right? You want to get into this habit. If you just say GCC ODP 401.c, what's your executable program called? A.out, right? That's great if you're only writing one program in your life. If you're going to write 50 programs, you don't want each of them to be named A.out. So GCC-output, and then I name the output file ODP 401. So now I've got something called ODP 401 sitting in this directory, which is my program. I can run that by just saying ODP 401. Hey, it says hi world. All right, my ODP, I think I'm pretty good. Okay, so so the ODPs are graded by an automated system. Okay, and there's a command called assess. And assess basically says, evaluate my code, give me a grade. Okay, so my program is called ODP 401. I can say assess ODP 401. It'll tell me I need to specify also the source file. Okay, ODP 401, that's what we call the executable file. That's the program that we actually run. ODP 401.c is the source file. That's the one that contains the actual source code. Okay, so I use this assess name. It tells me I'm connected to the server. My name is Goblin King. And I have three options. Very, very limited functionality here. G, submit my code for grading. X, exit the system. Or H, ask for help. And help will just show me these three options. It's not very helpful. And you can submit your code more than once. You can do this, and if you get a 0, you can make changes. You can go ahead, you can reassess. Whatever the last time is that you run this, that's the grade that will be recorded. So if your code works perfectly, and then you decide to try something and it breaks it and you get a 0, don't stop there, because your recorded grade is a 0 at that point. Go back and reassess the one that gives you 100. Okay, very important. Okay, now you'll see at the bottom here, you are about to assess your code for ODP 401, write a C program that outputs hello world. Make sure you double check that, because these things automatically update. Okay, the new assignment actually opens at 8:05 in the morning, so there's a 5-minute gap in there to avoid overlaps. So if you think that you're doing ODP 402 and you get this message, don't assess your code, because the code for ODP 402 is going to give you a 0. And then you got to go back and you got to find the right code for 401 and all this kind of stuff. So if you want to get out of here, just go ahead and say X. Right, and it'll say, warning, you didn't submit anything for grading yet. Don't forget to use the G command. Okay, so we're assessing ODP 401. It says you're about to assess for ODP 401. Good. Let's go ahead and do it. What do we do to assess it? Uppercase G. Okay, type in uppercase G. We run it. Results 0 out of 10. Ooh. I got a 0. Okay. So I'm going to kick out of here with an X, and I'm going to go ahead and edit my code again. Oh yeah, okay. Hello world with an uppercase W. Going to do it like that. Going to recompile, I'm going to reassess. Let's go ahead and grade that. Hey, 10 out of 10, I'm good. Okay, exit, you're done. So it's very easy to use this system once you know how to do it, but the first time you try to do it, you got to figure out all these little details, right? So this is why you get 2 days to do this. But the code for ODP 401 is this, right, or something equivalent, right? So it's not a challenge to write a program that prints hello world if you've done 121. It's a challenge figuring out how to take that and get 10 out of 10 with the assessment. So that's the reason why we're doing ODP 401. Does that make sense?
Does it have to be titled ODP 401?
No, you can call it anything that you want. Right, so my executable is called haha, and my source code is called hoho.c, and same thing, get 10 out of 10. All right, so I've been using the system for about 3 years, and the code seems to work well. Okay, we've yet to find an actual bug in the code. Sometimes I mess up when you make the configuration file, but the code itself seems pretty solid. And in general, at the end of the quarter, I hear from multiple students that the ODPs were the best part of the course, that this is where they really learned the material. Okay, the programming assignments are larger problems that you'll probably spend 1 to 2 weeks working on, and that's great once you've got all the parts and pieces in your brain and you start putting them together to make this big assignment. But if you're missing some of the fundamentals, right? What do we do with FGETs? How do we actually read things from that? What's the whole argc, argv business about? That kind of thing, right? That's what the ODPs will help you figure out. And they force you to do this, on an almost daily basis versus the day before the midterm or something. So it can seem like it's going to be a lot of work because every day you're going to have to do this, but once you're in the swing of it, it should be pretty straightforward, unless, like I say, there's something that you don't understand, and then that's where you want to be spending your time anyways, figuring that out. Because we're going to be building on a lot of stuff in this course. What we do one day will be what we build on the next day. And if that's the case, the ODP will make sure that you understand that stuff from the first day so that we have something solid to build on. Make sense? All right, so that's the Linux server. That's how you get in. That's how you do the assessment. We'll talk about Git tomorrow because I don't have enough time to get through it today, so we'll play with Git tomorrow. But if you want to get a heads up on it, we're using Git Lab. So there's GitHub and there's Git Lab. At the time when I started using Git, and I don't know if it's still the case or not, they're both free, but GitHub did not allow you to have private repositories unless you paid. So the free service, all your repositories were public, which is not what we want for a classroom. So GitLab, you can have private repositories, which means you can set them up so other people can't see your code and stuff, which is useful. So I'm going to ask everybody to get a GitLab account, and if you want to do that ahead of time, just hop on to gitlab.com, and it's the usual sign-up process. Give them an email address, confirm the email, and mostly you just have to pick a username that you want to use, and it's the username that you'll supply to me and that I'll use to pull down your projects throughout the quarter. And we'll probably continue this in 222 and maybe 223. But we'll talk about how to actually do anything with Git tomorrow. And I'll probably ask for a student volunteer tomorrow who wants to come up and set up a GitLab account in front of the class and go through the whole initial setup, just so we can do that from scratch. All right, so the next ODP will open on Wednesday and it'll be due Thursday, but you can't get to it ahead of time because there's only one ODP running at a time. And if you want to review, there's a link to a video here, which is a guide to using the automated assessment system, and it's 5.5 minutes long. And it basically goes through what we just went through, which was using a ODP on a simple assignment. So that's there if you need it. Let's see, what else do I want to go through? So there's a link to the lecture videos, and there's nothing posted on here yet. You have to click out of Canvas because Canvas doesn't like it. There's nothing there yet except the guide to the automated assessment, but I'll put these lectures up for both sections later on today, and you can get to them from there. As we develop code in class, sometimes if it's a big section of code that seems useful or people ask, I'll post it, and you can click on here to get to an area where all that code is available on the server. So you don't have to furiously write down 25 lines of C code. I'll post it up. There's an optional textbook for this course. And looks like this. It's called I Can See Clearly Now. I know it's a goofy title, but I couldn't resist. And I just put this together last month. And this is my perception of topics that that are really, really useful to have in this course, especially in CSE 222 in winter, and in programming courses beyond that, but you don't necessarily come out of 121 knowing. Okay? It's really designed for the situation where you basically understand C, you know the syntax of the language, you know how to put things together, you can compile and stuff like that. But if somebody says, you know, write a program that does this big, huge thing, you're kind of like, I don't know how to do that, right? You've got all the parts and pieces, but you don't necessarily know how to put them together. And so it's 100 pages of just different aspects of programming in general and programming in C in particular, like processing strings, right? All the different ways we can manipulate strings in C that aren't necessarily obvious. How to deal with input, how to deal with parsing input, taking some input and deciding what this input looks like, and things like that. So it's a free PDF download. It may be useful to you. It may be stuff that you already know and is second nature to you, but it's there as an optional text. So that's up there if you want to look at that. There's a link to the Linux text. Here's a link on shell programming. So yeah, we got 2 minutes left. Let me give you the short overview of where we're going. We're going to start off by looking at Unix commands, okay, reviewing some of the basic commands for moving around a file system and so on. And then we're going to look at shell scripting, which is how you can take a bunch of Unix commands and put them in a file, type in the name of the file, and it executes all those commands for you. So if there's 15 things you always want to do one after another, you can throw them all in the script and just type the name of the script. And then we're going to go from there to actually writing programs in what we call the bash shell. Because in the Unix command line, we can do things like if and while and make loops and conditional statements, and we can create programs. And your first programming assignment, PA1, which is due in 2 weeks, is going to be a shell scripting assignment. So you're going to write it in bash. So there's a synopsis of how to use different kinds of statements in bash here. And we'll start talking about that either tomorrow or Wednesday, and get you lined up for doing programming assignment 1. There's a link to a video on how to use Git Lab. Okay, I think it's about 10 minutes long. This is what we're going to basically go through tomorrow. We'll set up some Git in class. There's a link to a GDB video that I put together in 20 minutes years ago, and it's like my most popular video, way more than my artsy videos. So that's presumably worth something. And that's pretty much it. All right, so questions in the last 20 seconds? All right, cool, you're good to go. If you didn't sign in the beginning, sign in up here. If you're not in the class already, come up and I will add you to the class. Otherwise, I will see you next time.